Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Crafting here. You can see more details on my blog at melcrafting.blogspot.com. Right, today we are going to do a birthday shaker card using glass beads. And I'm using this watercolor painting that my 4-year-old did, and I'm going to use a circle die cut for the window. And I found this happy die cut in my stash that I thought would be great to use. I'm also going to use a birthday stamp from this Honeybee Stamps Hooray stamp set. I'm going to use this acrylic little block for a change to use the letters from this Concord and Ninth perfectly penned stamp set. It's just a pair of scissors. I'm going to use some trimming off, as you will see later on as I join things together. Bit of washi tape, some other supplies. Can't read this very well. It's not going in focus for me, but it's basically some Ranger embossing powder in white. A little glue pen with some liquid glue in it that I got off AliExpress, and some glass beads from Mill Hill. I'm also, for the window, I'm going to use this plastic sheet, which is just reusing off a report presentation, and some foam tape to get a bit of offset for the beads to shake in. That circle die cut is from this circle die cut set that I also got off AliExpress. And just using standard black cardstock and some acid-free double-sided tape. Also, for my die cutting, I use a Sizzix Big Shot. So here it is, taking over the shot. Get that out of the way. And last but not least, I'm going to do some heat embossing with my standard heat gun that I just get out of my garage. Does the job. And now I'm just going to pull everything off the table. Oh, hang on a minute. I've got my clear embossing ink pad and my anti-static powder tool, which I'll use for heat embossing later. Now I'm going to pull everything off my table. Get ready to start this project. First up, I'm going to cut that circle out for the window for my shaker card. So I'm just using my Sizzix Big Shot. Now you'll see that's I'm just setting the circle die cut there, and I'm about to put it on my platform, and you'll see that I only cut into one of the platforms, the top one, so I'm turning it over so the cut side is facing outward, and that's just so to prevent my plates getting warped, and I turn it over after each time I use it. So as you can see, it's cut into the top. Unfortunately, some bit of excess from a previous die cut project. And I'll turn that over just before I put it back into my die cut machine, ready for next time. So I'll remove that circle. Just carefully remove the washi tape. And that's my window. I'll put the watercolor background I'm going to use. And I'm just getting all the letters for Olivia, who is my niece that I'm doing this card for. Getting all the letters from my Concord and Ninth perfectly penned stamp set. And I just place them on my acrylic block while I set this up so I don't lose the letters. So it's an O, an L, an I, V, and an A. Alrighty. So now I'm ready to stamp. I'm going to use this Ranger archival ink in jet black. So just put all the stamps I'm using to the side. And to start off with, especially using this set, I like to do a bit of a test on a piece of scrap paper. So that's what you're going to see me do now. And that's just to make sure that the little linky parts are in the right place, and that I understand where to put the next stamp so it looks like it's been written. And the brilliant thing about this stamp set is there are capitals, there are lowercase, scripty letters, there's also uppercase letters. So I'm just going to fast forward this in a moment just so you can quickly see how I quickly test it. And in between each letter I'm using a baby wipe to clean the stamp off. and then replace it on my work surface. I'm just quickly stamping using my acrylic block. You can see the little flicks that I just try and connect together. So you can see the L and the I don't quite connect, so I know I've got to be a bit more careful when I actually stamp it on my card front. Rightio. Now it's time to do it on the actual card front. So I start with O, I've already pre-inked it, and I place it, and I've got the window on top of my watercolor piece just so I can try and position the name in the middle of the window. And again, in between each letter I'm wiping it off with a baby wipe. I'm just fast forwarding it here so it's not too boring for you guys watching. And you see I got that L and that I linked correctly, and I love this set because it looks like you've written it even though I can't do calligraphy to save myself, but this stamp set makes it look very professional. And the last letter is an A. Yay, Olivia! Okay, as you can see there's quite a big gap to the right of her name, so I decided to bring in this birthday celebration stamp set. Sorry, I can't remember what it's called. It's got these 3 stars, and I'm just going to take the biggest star from that set and put it on my acrylic block. And once again, I'm going to quickly check how it stamps on a scrap piece of paper before I add it. And I decide that I'm going to put it in the upper corner of her name, so you'll see that I lift it up a bit from my test piece. Pop that down. Perfect. Now, just for storage until I've finished my project and so I don't lose my stamps, I just put them all back on that acrylic block, and I'll put them away with the correct stamp sets when I'm done. So I just put those to the side, and now I'm going to move on to the next step. I put my ink pad away. Yep, just looking, positioning. Now I'm bringing in my We Are Memory Keepers stamping platform, because I'm going to stamp the birthday part of the sentiment onto the card front. So just using some low-tack tape there to stick it down to my stamping platform, which I'm going to use as my flat base. I'm going to place the happy die cut down so I can sort of position the birthday stamp that I want to heat emboss in white. And I'm just going to use some clear embossing ink to stamp that birthday sentiment. So I'm just grabbing the door of my stamping platform, grabbing the stamp, getting the die cut out of the way, put my anti-static powder tool all across the project so that the powder only sticks to where I stamp. Put some embossing ink, clear embossing ink, stamp it down. I do this a couple of times. And remembering that stamp is from my Honeybee Stamps Hooray stamp set. Pop it down. As you'll see, I think you can just see in the picture that it's pretty well stamped. Keep sticky. Use a baby wipe off the stamp. And once again, I put that onto an acrylic block to the side to put away later when I'm finished the project. So I'm just going to remove that tape and put it to the side. Rightio. And then I'm going to bring in some non-stick baking paper, which I have a crease in. So some people like to use coffee filters. This is what I have on hand. And I just put my embossing powder over the top. Now I like to put it just on top so it sits, and then tap it off and then tap. And that's covered that birthday stamp really well. And then I'm going to put all that powder back into the container, save it for later. You only use a little bit of powder each time, but you can see because it's non-stick paper, it just glides off, and as long as you've got a crease in the paper, it's got a fold to fall into when you lift it up. So I've just gone away and heat embossed that. So you'll come back and see it soon. Nice and bright white using my heat gun. And I'm just going to place it back in my stamping platform because very soon I'm going to use my liquid glue to glue the die cut happy down. So I'm going to put heaps of tape down to make sure it stays flat. And I'll bring in my die cut right there and my glue pen. And I'm just going to dot glue it on the back with this glue pen. And I'll probably do a review on this glue pen shortly because it's pretty good and I got it cheap off AliExpress, something like $3 for 5 or something. And you'll notice that when I place the happy and the birthday, I've placed it very organically, like it's not straight. And I've just done it organically because it's a lot more forgiving for me, and it makes the finished card look a lot more professional, and it takes me a lot less time rather than lining everything up with a T-ruler, etc. But yeah, that looks great. And I just tip it down. Now I am a bit worried it's going to warp, so I'm going to put some more non-stick baking paper down just on top. Then I'll put some flat pieces of card, a bunch of them, just what I had on hand, to the side on top of this, as you'll see shortly. Yeah, and then I'm going to close the door on my stamping platform, and then I'm going to put a weight on it. The other way you can do this is actually put it inside a book. And now I'll come back overnight and finish this card. So here I am, back from a good night's sleep. Open the stamping platform, take out the cards that are on top of my card front and the baking paper, and you'll see it's kept it flat. Yeah, and I'm just removing the tape, etc. So I can move on to the next part. So next part is going to be attaching the plastic window. So I'm using that leftover, I'm reusing this scrap piece of report cover of a presentation report I received. And unfortunately, you'll see I actually cut the first piece too small. As I turn it over, you'll see there's not enough excess for me to attach that window. So I cut another one that's slightly bigger and a bit better to use as a shaker window. But if you don't have old report covers or acetate, you can just use old packaging and just clean it up. Like, I've got quite a bit of stuff that I get from the courier that I just keep the packaging to use for shaker windows. So that piece is much better. You can see that there's lots of excess on the back. And I'm just going to use some double-sided tape to stick that window to the card front. And I'm just going to speed this up because it gets a little bit boring, and I'm sorry if my head gets in the way or my hands get in the way. I just want to get as close as possible to the edge of that circle so that we don't lose the beads when I put them inside. Right, remove the backing paper. And then I'm going to place that plastic window over it. I'm not too worried about overlap because I'll use my scissors to trim it later. Yep, just press it down. Awesome. Radio. And now we're ready for the next step. So I'm just going to see how that looks with the watercolor background and Olivia's name. And that looks fine. But our next step is to put the foam tape around the window so that the beads have something to shake inside, an area to shake inside. It gives it dimension, and it also gives it a little bit of depth for those beads to shake inside and move around. And I'm just going to fast forward this. It's just adding foam tape. You can double up the foam tape if you want them to shake around, heaps. But I just wanted a little bit of shaking and detail. Again, sorry for my head getting in the way. And with the foam tape, you want to make sure you get it as close as possible to that window so that you don't lose your beads. And that's the final product. I've just taken off all the backing paper off the foam, and I've just placed some of those glass beads down. I put it on top of the background, on top of the name, just moving them as close as possible to that name. And I'm just going to turn this over. So I've already taken the backing tape off the foam tape. I'm just going to pop down the window, just eyeballing where I want her name in the middle of the window, and then pressing it down. And as you see, give it a little shake. Shake, shake, shake. There we go. Perfect. Wonderful. And turn it over, make sure it's all stuck down nicely. Now there is a bit at the bottom that is revealing there's still a bit of sticky foam tape, so I'm just going to trim off the edge here so it's all flush, and then I'm going to use it to cover up the excess sticky that's showing on the back. So at the bottom there you can see the foam tape that I didn't quite cover with the watercolor background because of where I wanted to place the window over Olivia's name. So I just use that excess I've cut off to cover that up. Alright, and one of the last steps is to put a black cardstock on the back, and I just use so I think it's size A6. Yeah, size A6 piece of card, just standard black cardstock. Put some double-sided tape down all over that card front. I guess this is actually a note card rather than a card, because you just write on the back with, I just use a white gel pen. But here I'm removing the backing paper off the double-sided tape so that I can adhere the black cardstock to the back. And I'll use my scissors to trim off the excess. And you can use a paper trimmer if you have it, or a guillotine. I find it's easier just to use some scissors. I use some titanium coated scissors so that any tape I'm cutting off doesn't stick to my scissors. And there you go. One finished card, all nice and shaky. If you want more details on this, just go to my blog, which is melcrafting.blogspot.com. And thanks for watching.